Hello, today's July 14th, 2026. Today I'm going to be going over my Senate election predictions. If you're new to this channel, you can look at the description below. I have my detailed list of how I've done in all the elections I've done predictions for. I have over 1,300 subscribers across 2 channels, so it'd be great to get that up and get my viewers back. I have not uploaded in, I believe, since like November, since the off-year elections. And I didn't upload that much last year either. So I'm going to try and get back into this for the election year and especially going into the next presidential election cycle. Um, so pretty great. And I have also some other channel updates in the description as well. And this color you have on Minnesota right here would mean, in my channel, would be safe Democratic, 15 points or more of a win. This would mean likely Democratic, which is 7 points to 14.9% of a win. And lean would be 2 to 6.9%. And tilt is anything under a 2% win. I do it a little bit different than some of the other predictors out there, but that's just how I like to do it. And I think it makes the map look more colorful and, just better. Although it might not get the point across because I guess safe, if it's 10 points, you should say safe. It's debatable. I've thought about changing back. I did it for one video. I didn't like it. I like my way of doing it. But yeah, I have safe Democrat for Illinois. We're not even going to talk about Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, even Colorado and Oregon. I was debating Colorado, but yeah, Colorado's safe. Um, Maybe not because they probably take on the back, but that's a whole thing. A whole thing I'll get into is progressives versus establishment. That was a big thing I talked about. I originally recorded this video like a week ago, and then Plattner dropped out, and then Lindsey Graham died, and then the Michigan primary race is now like 50-50 because McMorrow dropped out. So it was a whole thing. I had a whole thing about that, and I couldn't upload it like 3 days after. Um, but yeah, these are my safe Democratic states. That does not mean that there's not other safe seats. That's just how I have for 15 points or more. For Republicans, South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, as long as that greedy Democrat stays in, because really has no reason staying in other than, wanting to be known and probably getting money from that. And then Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. Republicans have a lot more safe seats than the Democrats do. By the way, if you hear anything in the back, I have 2 baby siblings, which makes recording very difficult, but I'm tired of like pushing this off. So uh hopefully it's not gonna be that bad. And then that's kind of it. And for both of the safe seats, but I think for likely, there's basically likely seats that are safe. You could say Minnesota, New Jersey. New Jersey had a pretty strong red shift in uh, 2024, but then you saw the governor race, which people expected to be even closer, ended up being a dominant win. Comparatively to polls, Democrats outperformed, and they seem to be doing that in every election in the last like 2 years, most of them anyway. Recently, you're seeing not really a momentum shift, but you're seeing momentum die down for Democrats, and hopefully that doesn't, shoot them in the foot because they are doing a lot of that themselves. Um, Most notably in the Michigan race, and I'll get into that when I get to the Michigan race. Another seat I'm going to add to the likely column is Virginia, which is basically safe, and New Mexico as well. That's kind of the only other seat that Democrats are definitely going to win. They're kind of capped out at. I'm going to make sure I'm not a psycho real quick before I finish that sentence. Yeah, I don't really see any other seats are definitely going to win. Now I think they're going to win a lot of these seats left, but it is not as solid as you'd think. Again, a lot of that is they have long, well-known. I think all of these likely seats are just long, well-known face of the party Democrats, and then versus Republicans, people don't know, and you're seeing them all lead by double digits in all these states. Although we don't really have any data for New Mexico, but yeah, for likely for Republicans, I'll get into that as well. Mississippi's basically safe. It's just for some reason for Senate races and statewide races, Mississippi's usually single digits. I don't know why. You could like it's really interesting to go back and how they vote president like federally versus statewide races. Those are really interesting. I guess they get I'm not sure. I actually have no idea. I should probably, know more about what I'm talking about. But trust, stick with me, guys. I did have South Carolina as lean only as a literal basis, I know it was gonna go red. Um, and I still think it's gonna go red just by a little bit larger amount now. I had Lindsey Graham winning by like 6 points, like 6.5 points. Now I think it's gonna be like a 9 point race, a 10 point race. Uh, I think it's was it oh no, Hinson's the Iowa lady. I forgot the name of the Democrat running here. She's running an okay campaign. It's South Carolina. You're not going to win South Carolina, even if polls do show that it's in favor. But again, that's one of the least favored Republicans in Congress of like the last 20 years. Is Lindsey Graham, um, and Mitch McConnell. Oh yeah, there was a whole thing with Mitch McConnell. I didn't even know what to say in the video. Like, oh, is there going to be a special election for this guy? There was a whole thing about that. I couldn't even talk about it. I still can't talk about it. They showed a photo of him, and it was just an old photo from like a couple weeks ago. So we still don't know. We still haven't seen Mitch McConnell live within weeks. So that's an interesting thing. Um, he's probably alive, so I'm not going to expand on that. Um, you know, there's this whole debate on if being brain dead is considered alive, and that's a real interesting talk. He's fine, guys. Guys, yeah, actually, I didn't want to say it, but I did talk with him myself. I had a 20-minute conversation with him, and we talked about, the craziest things, That's all I'm gonna say. Um, September, September 19th is gonna be crazy. And for any other likely states, I'm gonna go Kansas for now. There's no reason that this should be like a crazy close race, but you guys know Kansas statewide. Um, their governor is a Democrat. It's been shifting blue. I have a whole video, I believe, on Kansas, a really old one on my old channel. But Kansas is kind of in a similar situation as Alaska, where Democrats aren't making any moves in registrations, but they're just turning out like crazy. And it's one of the only states I would personally label as a moderate, quote unquote moderate Republican state. That doesn't exist, but if that makes any sense. Hopefully someone understands that. And I'm gonna go with Nebraska as well. Osborne's running here again. He outperformed like crazy compared to what a Democrat would have in 2024. I believe it was a single digit race. I expect a similar thing. He's going against a more favored senator now, so he'll probably have a worse performance. Uh, there's not really any data coming out this year. There used to be so much data coming out, but we have nothing in Kansas, not really anything in Nebraska. They're only polling like North Carolina and Georgia and in Maine over the last like 3 weeks. Like they even come out with a Texas poll in forever. I feel like I used to be getting data every day when I'm tracking elections, and now there's like nothing. I don't like that, but on one hand, I do like that. The problem is it means a lot of my takes and everyone's takes are more based on vibes. Based on the vibes, that's typically like a third of my process, and I don't like that it's having to take up a much larger amount than it used to. I used to like just ramble on, just have no idea what I'm talking about until I decided how I was going to go with some of these states. I already know how I'm going to characterize all of these other states now, and I don't know if it's because of the vibes thing, but I'm hoping that it's not. I hope I can. I really hope this doesn't blow up my channel where I sound like an idiot like in 2024. There's a whole thing I made a whole video about how I was tracking data and how I was applying it, and what percent of it I actually used it as my predictions, because I can't just say, oh, this poll had a Democrat winning, so the Democrat's gonna win. And I had blacklisted polls who all did very well, that do horrible in the midterms, and then do really good in presidential election. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I had a whole video about it. The next most likely state to go to a party. I want to say Georgia's more likely to go to Ossoff than it would be. I'm not gonna say likely though. Oh, Florida. Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Florida, yeah. Um, I think best case scenario, it's like a 6 point race. And there's a massive turnout downward shift for Republicans. Again, I'm not expecting Democrats to do well. They're still only polling at like 48%. The only reason I expect them to get more is because I don't expect Republicans to show up like they do. Um, like they usually do. But again, everyone always says that and then they turn out anyway. Uh, that's the one compliment I'll give them is they're very resilient. If Democrat voters actually went out and voted for who they wanted to vote every time, you'd see a bloodbath every year. Florida, I expect it to be like I'm gonna say 9.2% race. I don't really expect anyone to be talking about Florida. I expect it to be called within an hour, but I do expect it to be closer than the general red shift that has been going. Not that there's any backwards trend going or anything. I think you're going to see a similar trend with Latinos. You're not going to see anything like go backwards. You might see that in Texas only, for very specific circumstances. But everywhere else, you're going to see nothing really change with Hispanic voters. Um, shifting towards the Republican Party. I don't think there's any reason uh, that they would just now be changing back. And the next state, I want to say Iowa, but I'm gonna say New Hampshire is a lean state. I think everything else is lean or less. So everything else is like a under 7 point win for everybody. I think New Hampshire is typically always closer than Democrats want. It's not really a state they should be having to put money into, and there's nothing that shows that Republicans should actually be winning here. But it's always a little too close for comfort, and for that reason, I think it's going to be the same thing as it has been for 20 years, a slightly like a Democratic leaning state, but no one's like don't Republicans should probably be attacking New Hampshire because they can only attack Michigan and New Hampshire. So I'm curious if they're actually doing that. And then I'm gonna go with Iowa next. I'm gonna say it's a 4.2% race. I think Henson beats Turek by 4.2%. Um, and I think you're gonna see Rob Sand be the only reason that it's carried into like under a 8 point race. I think generally the Senate race um would be like a double digit race. Uh, I think Turek is a pretty good candidate in Iowa terms, but anywhere else, I don't really like this guy. I don't think Democrats are excited about him, but it's Iowa, so they kind of have to be excited about him if they want to pull off a crazy, crazy upset. Turek is leading in some data. Again, not the vibes. I don't get the vibes, if we're if we're gonna go off of that. I don't think Iowa's in play. Again, sorry if there's like stuff in the background. But yeah, I'm gonna say the next most likely is definitely Georgia. It should be like a 5 or a 6 point race. For Ossoff at the moment, and there's this whole thing going on. I hope I get this before this would happen on Thursday. I hope I get this out because Trump's gonna go and declare Warnock and Ossoff as illegitimate. I don't know what that means. Is he just gonna go and talk all this stuff about them and be like, these guys are imposters and then do nothing about it? Or is he gonna have like public arrestings and make it a whole thing and then they're gonna get out of jail like in an hour and then nothing will come of it because it's not gonna do anything? I don't know. I think that my personal theory is he's going to see, oh, we found evidence that these were illegitimate elections, and then he's not going to say anything about how that's proven, and then he's going to be like, okay, so I'm going to send the National Guard to the polls. That's the only thing that I think that's the realistic like dictator scenario that comes out of Trump's mouth on Thursday. I'm curious if I get that right, but I hope I don't because that's just insane. Um, Nuremberg trials go crazy though. And the next I'm gonna have is North Carolina. Watley seems to be mildly closing the gap here, but not really. People just seem to know who he is now, but he still seems to be consistently losing by 4 to like 8 points. I think he ends up losing by like 3 point. I'm gonna say 3.4. I'm gonna start going on the dot with these again vibes based for my decimals because my margins are always vibe based. My calls are not vibe based always. Um, like my overall like, oh, it's gonna go Democrat or Republican, but I always like to there's really nothing else I can say for oh, how much is it gonna go to a party? Nobody knows that. I think I think it's gonna go by a couple points, but I think it's gonna be closer than polls say. but I don't think it's going to necessarily be a close race. It will be called on election night. It shouldn't be that close. And the next state I'm gonna have. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna say. The next state I would have is either Ohio. Okay, it's based on the Michigan race. So if Stevens wins her race, um, I think that Michigan would be tilt Democratic. But if Saeed, I'm very sorry if that's wrong. I've heard his name pronounced once, and it was a while ago. I'm gonna say Abdul. If Abdul uh wins his primary, I think that it could go up to like a 6 point win. But again, if it's Stevens, I think it's within 2 points. I think it's going to be really close and something Democrats really shouldn't be needing to worry about if they could get behind a progressive candidate for once, but they won't because they're paid not to. It's a whole thing. I had a whole tangent about how Abdul was definitely going to win the primary because that vote was split and it did not seem like McMorrow wanted to leave. And it was kind of a freebie layup for progressives, and they were going to finally have a large national platform to talk about in a battleground race, and it was going to be a massive shift for the party and change the entirety of our decade of elections and how we nominate Democrats. And it really could all come down to how this Michigan race is played, or it could delay progressive's progress by a decade. We don't know. I'm really disappointed that polls show Stevens winning. It doesn't make sense. I think if people went out and actually voted, Abdul should probably win. If young voters actually went and actually, they say they don't vote because it doesn't matter, and then they won't vote in one of the closest, most important, arguably most important primary of the century for the Democratic Party is Michigan right now. Is Michigan Senate race. It is the most important primary of the century because of that state, a stage of that could give progressives to widen their their expansion to expand. I don't know how to to expand to voters and like you hear everyone. It doesn't matter if you elect an actual far left candidate. People don't know what far left means, by the way. It doesn't matter if you elect one because they're going to call them far left anyway. They called Kamala Harris a far left, left wing lunatic, who was a communist, and then it's like Kamala Harris. She's not. That's insane. Michigan. I think Abdul should win this race. As of right now, I'm gonna have him win it by like 4.8. Um, if it's Stevens, it moves down to tilt, and it's actually scary for Democrats. She is very unlikable. She will not succeed with the independent voter, and if she does, she's going to get primaried immediately. She is the next Fetterman. I don't understand what people see in her as. I've not seen a single Democrat defend her and actually give a reason to why, other than she's like a woman or whatever. That's the only. I'm so serious. I don't want to sound dense. That's the only thing I've seen about her. And then and okay. Okay, people are gonna hate this. I'm gonna go with Ohio first though. I think Ohio's gonna be like a 3 point race for the Republicans. I think it's gonna be really uh early called though. I think it's gonna be like a 2.8% race for Husted, and then it's gonna be called at like 944, right? That's gonna be my prediction. Uh Sherrod Brown's absolutely in contention to win this race. He outraised his candidate by $10 million this quarter. That just came out today. Husted did just have his best quarter, but it's not even $10 million. Sherrod Brown also has familiarity. Everyone knows this guy. They generally like him. He had a higher term. He had a higher approval than his opponent in 2024. He just lost because you can elect somebody and not vote for them. I've liked plenty of candidates I haven't voted for. It's also Ohio, so yeah. um I think if Democrats do win here, that's kind of like the main thing of the night. Because if they win Ohio, and if they do, Ohio's usually called pretty early no matter who wins it. They're fairly fast at counting. If they win Ohio, Democrats better pull out the cake. That like even if they lose the Senate, that's an extra seat that they ideally should not have. And honestly, if you think of it, if Democrats just had one more seat, if they just had one more seat in the Senate, every seat matters so much more. Like, even if it's like, I'm not gonna get into it, but literally today, JD Vance broke a tiebreaker for the Venezuela Powers Act, just so he could, like, they could just kill more people for fun. It's a whole thing. Um, one more Democrat, like 20,000 more votes in Pennsylvania in 2024. That act would not have passed, and they would have prevented the president from bombing people and raising prices for no reason. Like, it goes down to literally a couple hundred voters sometimes every single year. Um, don't ever say your vote doesn't count. And even if it does, I made a comment on my Instagram. I made a whole comment the other day. It got a couple thousand likes. And what a flex, am I right? I made a comment and it was, gee, um, the real anyway was, oh, I'm not gonna vote. I'm in New York. And then he tried to sound all tough about it. And I'm like, you guys don't care about stacking up numbers on your opponents? Like, imagine living in Delaware, or let's go with Rhode Island, which is absolutely like an R plus 30 state, but it typically votes like within 10 to 20. Would you rather win by 10 points or rather win by 50? Just get out and vote. Like, why don't you, like, demoralize your opponent? If you demoralize your opponent, it is a game changer. It is so important to do that. And nobody talks about this. If I'm in a safe race, I'm being like, do not embarrass me. Get me out there. Make me win by 50 points. We have the numbers to do it. I don't understand. Demoralize the opponent nationally. Your vote counts nationally. You could win the national vote by 4 points, or you could get all of your guys out and vote and win it by 12. Even if it's the same results and it's just stacking up numbers in safe states. It doesn't matter. I don't understand why the turnout isn't as high in some safe blue states. It actually is generally higher in some of them. Some people get the task, but there's still like a good 40% of voters who don't vote in most states. It's insane. Stack up, and again, this goes for the Republican Party, I guess. Like, I'm not gonna, oh, don't go out and vote, guys, because I don't like you. But like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that you shouldn't vote. You should vote. Just vote, because again, would you rather win? Like, you guys know, never mind. Fuck that. You guys do stack up the numbers in West Virginia. You guys do stack up the numbers in Wyoming. Democrats, I don't think they had a single state they won by 30 besides like maybe Vermont. In is that it? In 2024? They used to win that by like 35. They won Illinois by like 40 points. If they came out and voted in just like certain cities, if they did like campaigns like that, there should be entire movements dedicated to stacking up the numbers on the ops. Whatever. Okay, that's my little motivation for you Democrats who don't want to vote because you live in Rhode Island. I don't know why I singled out Rhode Island. It's just my best example. Or Oregon, which is way more blue than it always votes. Like that. Oh, maybe that governor race will help. It's looking identical to 2022, where that governor race is like, oh, I think it's the same candidates. It was Drazan or versus Kotek. I really hope. Drazan. I don't know. I definitely did say that correctly, but Kotek is right. Um, and it's that same exact race again, and it's the same poll in like the same month saying, oh, the Republican is actually ahead, and then they lose by like 5. Like, Democrats need to be doing that because it literally showed, oh, we actually do need to go out and vote, and they outperformed by like 10 points. Just do that. I don't understand. um the next state I'm gonna do, oh, I had Ohio's lean, sorry about that. I'm gonna say main tilt, but closer to 2 points. Plattner leaving was so important. I was terrified that this guy was not about to leave because it sounded like the impression from the first message that when people were telling him to drop out, it sounded like the impression was that he was not going to drop out because he's like, you got to give me who I want to pick. And then I'm like, oh, they're not going to do that. He's going to stay in the race and sabotage everything. But he left, and who I personally like, I guess Troy Jackson, who campaigned with Plattner, and I think that could arguably be used as a good thing rather than a bad thing. And he has a history of, oh, he used to be an anti-abortion staunch Republican, and someone brought that up, and then people shut it down immediately because they're like, oh, you can't trust him, you don't want to vote for him, he's not actually a progressive, and it's always Republicans saying that. because they actually are scared of progressives. And that is always what it has been. If you see Fox go on the news like, oh, this is what progressives want to do, and they list what they want to do, and it's just like the most widely approved of policies ever in the history of the country. And it's because they're scared of it. They're trying to paint it in a bad light, and they literally can't. They can't make affordable housing sound bad. They can talk about reason. They can talk about hypotheticals of why it would be bad, and then like never explain why or give bad reasons as to why. Um, I think a socialist candidate, a Democratic social, big difference. Democratic socialist candidate in Maine is exactly what you need right now. Especially, it's probably the only battleground state where you could feel safe doing that. I don't think that progressives are unelectable in battleground states at all. I think Abdul would absolutely outperform Stevens. Actually, I think we're at the point in the party where actually there is evidence of this now. Um, Progressives have a higher approval rating in the party, uh, generally on favorability than establishment Democrats do. Than or moderate Democrats, as like they call themselves. They're not moderate Democrats. They are establishment Democrats, thick and thin. That's not the right saying. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Maine. Probably they're probably not gonna pick Troy Jackson, and that's why I have it as tilt. They're gonna pick an establishment Democrat because that's what they do, and they're gonna say that they all voted to do it. And that's the consensus, and then they're not going to care. Troy Jackson, I'd say he win by 4 points, honestly. And it would be a huge. It'd feel like the fat man's finally standing up from my chest if Troy Jackson or another progressive is picked. There is one other progressive in Maine that is running for Senate, I believe. That I believe the Sanders APAC or not Sanders APAC. Whoa. Uh, his political action committee, Sanders, I believe that they endorsed somebody that wasn't Troy Jackson, and it was another progressive that looked pretty good as well. Um, One that didn't campaign with Plattner. So if they're trying to get away from him, they're probably going to go with them. If they're going to go down, if they actually do they care about winning the race or do they care about putting forward a candidate that they're paying? I don't know. And then I'm gonna go with what time is it? I'm so late. I'm so late. Okay, okay. I'm gonna wrap this up. Alaska, Alaska. I had it as blue in my first one 2 weeks ago, and then I'm like, I'm being way too cocky. I don't trust the Democrats to carry out their win through the midterms. They, as of right now, they probably win Alaska. I don't trust them to do that. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot. They always do. They pick the wrong candidates. They say the wrong things. And when they have a layup dunk against a political opponent, they try and play nice. It's not going to work. And Peltola is the only one who can win in Alaska. I would not be surprised if she won. I'd be ecstatic and I would kind of be in awe. But realistically, it makes sense, especially in Alaska. I had a whole video about that too. And then guess who won 2 months later after I made a video a couple years ago? Peltola won her race in Alaska. I'm like, whoa, Alaska flipped overnight. I made like an overdramatic post about it. Alaska, I'm going to say 1.4%. It is going to go to the final round. It will go down to Peltola. Slightly losing in dramatic fashion, just like 2024 in her House race. And Texas, Tallarico. I wanna say Tell. I'm gonna say Tell just because Ohio and Iowa are definitely more. I'd say 1.9% then, pretty on the line with 2%. He's gonna heavily outperform Harris. Um, he's having a pretty good campaign. He's actually not doing really bad decisions. But playing it's almost like he's protecting a lead how he's campaigning, and I'm like, you are not up. What are your internal showing? I mean, I'm sure they're okay because the Republicans are funneling crazy amount of money into Texas, and I see their comments like, oh, happy Democrats are wasting their money in Texas. Keep doing it. What happens when they say that and they end up choking in Texas? And by the way, that's not true. You know what happens with Democrats putting money in Texas? You know why Republicans are putting money in Texas? Because their internal polls show them in a close race or losing. But and I learned more about internal polls that they didn't release. I didn't know that. I was a stupid kid a couple years ago. I didn't know campaigns just didn't release uh internal polls that look bad for them. I don't know why I didn't know that, but I didn't. And I learned that, and Biden lost. And it said in March that he was losing New Jersey and like competitive in New York. And I'm like, gee, I'm very happy he dropped out now. That would have been insane. Harris did very well considering that fact now. I have Democrats getting like 221, like just a little bit over 220 House seats. I might as well just say that, and I'll do my governor race in the next video. My predictions anyway. Thank you for watching. I hope this was like more watchable than my old videos. I don't know. I hope there hasn't been much background noise, but you guys have a great day. I am in a majorly late, so yeah. Come back, please, come back to this channel, subscribe. Oh my God, please. All right, bye bye.